From India, from Sri Lanka and the world, wishes poured in for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who turned 75 on 17th of September. Hello and welcome to Inside South Asia. I'm Samiksha Srivastava. Let's begin the show. The storm and fury of protests in Nepal have settled, but the bigger challenge of repair and a break from the past is only just taking off. The new Nepal that thousands of youth demonstrated for last week is some way off, yet even though the process of change has just begun. As it looks to keep corrections on track, this is a Nepal at a crossroads.
Sushila Karki.
New beginnings. Sushila Karki, former Chief Justice of Nepal, sworn in as the country's interim Prime Minister. A widely respected figure known for a hardline stance against corruption. Karki will lead an interim government that will take the country to fresh elections in March next year. Her transitional cabinet includes reforms-minded ministers in key posts. On the ground, Kathmandu limps back to a semblance of normalcy after a brutal week. Businesses have reopened, curfew has been lifted. The country mourns the 72 youth killed. They are hailed for enabling a revolution, giving rise to a new Nepal. The thousands injured are the country's newest heroes, and there is hope of new beginnings in the way the country is governed.
Many of us have sustained bullet injuries, and many others were killed during this protest. Their blood should not be in vain. This has toppled the government and formed a new one. Now this should not be in vain. We don't want the country to return to its earlier state.
Sushila Karki and her team have their task cut out. She must open credible investigations into the protest deaths, tighten oversight of security forces, and ensure protection of civil liberties and freedoms that had sparked the protests. Looking ahead, she has to restore public faith in the country's government and repair institutions. Anti-corruption mechanisms have to be put in place. Issues like jobs and ease of doing business need fixing. The government needs to become more inclusive through constitutional reform. And towards preparing for elections, she must ensure the Election Commission works free from political influence. Neutral observers must be invited.
Yeah, of course, it's a great opportunity to the people of youth of Nepal, as well as it's a very great challenge because the young people are not mature. They don't have so much information. The systems are very much corrupted. But I know the youth who picked the Prime Minister, she is very highly integrated. Her integrity is high, her honesty is high, her commitment for the democracy is very, very high. So, if there is hope from there is big hope from the Prime Minister of Nepal.
Watchers have drawn big parallels of developments in Nepal with the picture in Bangladesh a year back. Muhammad Yunus taking over after Sheikh Hasina's ouster and Karki becoming interim PM with Oli's exit. There are big lessons for PM Sushila Karki on taking the country firmly towards elections, on constitutional reform being kept non-partisan, on ensuring that economic grievances, including jobs and fairness, don't go unaddressed. Fact is, Nepal stands at a key fork on its road ahead between old power and new hope, between decay and renewal. More than politics, it's about forming a new identity. Nepal has a blank page to start out again with. The question is, will the promise of change survive political storms, or will the old elites tighten their hold again? This is Nepal at a huge crossroads that will decide its future.
Bangladesh has experienced a sharp rise in violent crimes, including murder, rape, robbery and burglary since the political transition on August 5 last year. A bone-chilling video has surfaced from Sipchar town of Madaripur district, in which a group of men are seen attacking a person using an axe. Reports say the victim's name was Rakib. He died soon after the attack on the way to the Dhaka Medical College Hospital. Rakib was on bail. He had come out of jail about 2 weeks ago. The killing is not an isolated incident. Records say that there's been a surge in crime in major cities and towns in Bangladesh over the last few weeks. According to the records, at least 294 murder cases were filed in January this year, which is up from 231 in the same month last year. 344 cases in the month of June, 362 cases in July reflect a steady rise. Kidnappings topped the charts in July with 109 incidents. 177 robbery incidents were recorded in the month of May. The situation on crime against women remains grim. March, April and July had nearly 6,000 cases of women and child abuse. These are besides issues like human trafficking, cybercrime and drug smuggling. Bangladesh is the biggest destination in South Asia for yaba, methamphetamine-based drug produced in Myanmar, with the market running into billions of dollars. The worsening situation has raised concerns on the Muhammad Yunus-led interim government's ability to maintain law and order. US Taliban meet 4 years after America's chaotic exit from Afghanistan. US officials are back in Kabul, quietly meeting the Taliban, striking a tentative prisoner swap deal and talking investments, a sign that Washington's unfinished business in Afghanistan is once again on the table. It highlights a simple reality, that is, the United States cannot afford to fully walk away from Afghanistan.
US and Taliban leaders in a single frame after more than 4 years. Adam Boehler and Zalmay Khalilzad from the US met Taliban Deputy Prime Minister Baradar and Foreign Minister Muttaqi in Kabul. The key outcome was an agreement to exchange detainees, though details on who, how many or when remains unclear.
We should be careful not to say that this is some type of strategic change on the part of the United States towards Afghanistan. It's really, the catalyst is very clearly the desire of the administration to recover U.S. citizens who have been unjustifiably detained in Afghanistan. And that's something that the Trump administration has done since the outset in several other countries.
Alongside the swap, counter-terrorism remains central. The US wants assurances that Afghanistan will not again become a safe haven for Al-Qaeda or ISIS-K. Talks touched on wider relations, investment opportunities, the status of citizens and humanitarian concerns. US officials see Afghanistan's humanitarian collapse, natural disasters and security risks spilling across borders. There's an obvious realization that a coherent long-term strategy for engagement can help the United States to better address its security, humanitarian and rights interests in Afghanistan.
I know that the U.S. sees geopolitical gains in this short run, although you couldn't rule out some political dimension to these talks, because they included not just Adam Boehler, who is the basically the hostage envoy. He's the special envoy for U.S. citizens who are unjustifiably detained overseas. So he's the main hostage, as they call it, negotiator. But Zalmay Khalilzad was there. And you know, of course, that he was President Trump's envoy during the first Trump administration, and he negotiated that peace agreement with the Taliban. So there are tremendous obstacles. There's also reasons, of course, given the hardships in the country, for the Taliban to want to have better relations with the United States, but its policies present a tremendous obstacle to that goal.
Other countries have already moved further, and that too remains a driving factor for the United States. Russia recognized the Taliban government in July, becoming the first to do so. Moscow is seeking cooperation on security and trade, especially in energy, transport and agriculture. It has even removed the Taliban from its list of terrorist organizations. China, Iran, Pakistan and the Central Asian states are also expanding ties. Some have appointed envoys, others are opening channels for investment.
The Chinese side supports the international community in strengthening engagement and communication with Afghanistan's interim government, encouraging it to actively respond to the concerns of the international community and jointly help Afghanistan achieve reconstruction and development. We support Afghanistan in combating violent terrorist forces, making positive contributions to the peace, stability and prosperity of the region.
The calculation is clear. The Taliban is not leaving, and stability in the region requires dealing with them directly. The core debate then is not whether to engage with the Taliban, but rather how and when. What are the optics of engagement? What policy tools should be used? And should engagement be sustained despite the Taliban's grave violations of human rights? Geopolitical compulsions are pushing hard.
A dramatic new bill in India's Kerala could redefine the state's relationship with its wildlife. The state government has cleared a draft law that enables authorizing the immediate killing of any wild animal that injures a person in a residential area. The move comes after a surge in human-animal conflicts, but environmentalists are sounding the alarm, warning of widespread misuse and grave ecological costs.
Man versus wild. A conflict escalating across Kerala's hills and farmlands. Rural families face growing anxiety, their crops destroyed, their lives at risk. The state government is proposing a radical solution. The new Wildlife Protection Bill says the Chief Wildlife Warden can order the immediate killing of any wild animal that enters a populated area and causes harm. Its passage could set a dangerous new precedent for wildlife management, not just in Kerala, but across India. Kerala's Forest Minister says this bill will remove impractical legal barriers, allowing prompt action during emergencies while ensuring the protection of vital wildlife species. The bill seeks to decentralize the power to kill. Authorities would shift from one state official to regional forest conservators for faster local decisions. Local governments, including panchayats, would also be empowered to act against animal threats. The state also wants the power to declare wild boars as vermin. This would permit mass culling without the usual legal safeguards. Another proposal downgrades the bonnet macaque monkey from the highest protection level of Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. This would make it easier to capture or eliminate them. Environmentalists call the proposals unscientific. They warn the new powers could be widely misused. They fear it bypasses critical safeguards for animals built over 5 decades. Down to Earth, an environment protection publication, says this effectively normalizes lethal force as a frontline response rather than a rare, carefully evaluated measure. Ecologists also warn of a domino effect. Removing wild boars, a key prey for carnivores, would push tigers and leopards towards villages and livestock. Critics say the bill frames animals as enemies, which could undermine conservation efforts entirely. The irony is that Kerala has historically been a model for coexistence. Despite high population density, it has successfully conserved iconic species like elephants and tigers. But faced with intense political pressure and the real suffering of farmers, the government has opted for this. It's an answer to a choice between immediate safety and long-term ecological balance.
The more Maldives, renowned for its picture postcard views of turquoise waters and white sands, is groaning under the weight of plastic pollution. Besides rising marine pollution, the island nation is also facing an alarming rise in sea levels. Our next report explores.
The Indian Ocean archipelago, about 1,200 islands and 26 atolls, the Maldives is the proverbial paradise on Earth, a favorite tourist destination for honeymooners, beach lovers, and divers. But decades of plastic waste, such as plastic bottles, fishing nets, packaging waste, eat sea, is threatening to turn the paradise into a plastic pit. A toxic reminder that even the most pristine places, if left unattended, could fall from grace, bearing the cost of our consumption. According to the United Nations Environment Program, the country generates 43,134 tons of plastic waste every year, which is roughly the weight of 215 blue whales. With many of the Maldivian islands lacking formal waste systems, it is not uncommon to find plastics burning in the open air or often ending up in the sea. The situation is worse on smaller islands where at times food waste and plastics are thrown directly into the ocean. Consequently, the Maldives now finds itself, rather ignominiously, among countries with the highest concentrations of microplastics in the world. These are tiny plastic particles, often invisible to the naked eye, that can have devastating effects on marine life and ecosystems.
This has to do with the currents as well. So we have currents that favor sort of the circulation of the particles in the water in the region, and this means that they are concentrating in this area, which is also a reason why the Maldives are actually famous for whale sharks and manta rays that are feeding on planktonic organisms. And unfortunately, when plastic becomes microplastic, it also starts to concentrate in exactly the same places.
For a nation on the front lines of climate vulnerability, the impact of mass tourism, overconsumption, has exacerbated the scourge of plastic pollution into a silent emergency, threatening the very ecosystems that sustain life here.
So sadly, there has been quite a bit of news about the increase of plastic in that region. And of course, it has to do with the increase of tourism. But mostly, I think it is a problem for small island nations to just, deal with plastic and rubbish, because distances are long and the islands are small. So it requires a lot of logistical effort to deal with this. And I think, it needs to be part of the tourism package that, people need to also ensure that they are looking after the islands when they're coming to the islands.
So, what has been the response of the Maldivian government in tackling the menace of plastic pollution? In March last year, the Maldives rolled out a nationwide ban on single-use plastics, building on earlier import taxes for plastic bags. Additionally, as per new regulations, hotels and resorts are mandated to segregate waste. Meanwhile, multilateral efforts are supporting the development of waste-to-energy plants, plastic bag bans on pilot islands, and better waste segregation infrastructure. The Maldives' coral reefs are considered among the world's richest, which support 1,100 fish species and 187 types of corals. But these fragile ecosystems, which attract visitors aplenty, are staring down existential erosion due to plastic pollution. But plastic pollution is not the only concern the islanders are besieged with. With 80% of its land less than a meter above sea level, climate change could soon turn into a matter of life and death in the Maldives. Its very existence is increasingly threatened by an alarming rise in the sea levels. By 2050, scientists and experts have estimated that 80% of the country could become uninhabitable due to global warming. By the year 2100, the entire country, with all its beauty and life, could be submerged. The Maldives is standing at a crucial junction, battling pollution, extreme weather, and rising sea levels. Urgent climate action is the need of the hour.
That's all we have on the show today, but before we go, we leave you with glimpses of a unique fashion show in New York with a special Nepal connection. Take a look and I will see you next week.
Started with this idea, the flower Angel's Trumpet. Angel's Trumpet flower is something that grows back home in Nepal a lot around my house, and it's it can be intoxicating, but it also blooms at night. It's very complex and complicated, and dualities of it all. I really love that idea. So we've taken that silhouette and flower motif and turned it into prints and embroideries and shapes and the silhouettes for the collection.